I'm going to start the webinar. Welcome to today's Natspec Wednesday webinar. This is a chance for Natspec member colleges to get together, to exchange ideas, to talk about any research they're involved, let people know about their effective practice, and generally support each other in their work. So welcome to today's webinar. My name is Yola Jacobson and I'm the manager of the Natspec Transform CPD service. So today we have the last in our series of the Natspec Awards webinars. And I'm really delighted to welcome Shari Welsford, who's an education program manager, and Helen Mills, who's education pathways leader at Sense College. And Sense College were winner of the 2021 Student Voice Award. So congratulations again to Sense College. And Shari and Helen today are going to tell us about that award-winning practice at Sense College. Focusing on a cross-college learning forum, which is bringing learner forums together from a multi-site setting. So they're going to give a really interesting presentation about that. I'm just going to say a few words about, okay, so I am now going to hand over to Shari and Helen to give their presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my panel so they can share theirs. And hand over now. Over to you, Shari.
Thank you. So I'm just going to share my screen. Can you see that, Helen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for joining us. Today we're going to explore our Sense College Cross-College Learner Forum with you. You've got myself. I'm Shari Welsford. I cover the quality of curriculum and have been coordinating the Cross-College Learner Forum. And I'm here with Helen. Helen, did you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, I'm Helen. I'm the Education Pathways Leader at Sense College, and my role involves, I offer specialist support, particularly in the areas of multisensory and single sensory impairment, communication and assistive technology.
Thank you, Helen. So we just wanted to start with a bit of introduction on who we are and what we do. So we are an independent specialist college and we operate from across 8 sites in the East Midlands, West Midlands and East of England. We support learners who have a range of complex SEND to achieve positive life outcomes through RAPA and accredited learning programmes. And in this session, we'll explore the implementation of our multi-site cross-college learner forum practice model, which is created to uplift and empower our students. So we'll look at what it is that we do and the things that students have achieved through participating. So we just wanted to point out how geographically spread our college sites are. So I'm kind of based centrally in Peterborough, and it's a 2-hour trip over to Alderby on the east, and likewise 2-hour trip from Peterborough to Birmingham. So there's quite a big travel commitment for our learners to connect across those sites, and we'll explore what we did or how we've overcome that through our forum. So on an individual level, learner voice is hugely valued and it inspires our person-centred curriculum approach. So on a daily basis, learners are able to use their voice to affect the activities that they take part in, the timetable that they access and the support that they receive. On a local centre level, our local forums have been running in most sites for some time, and students have been able to use their voice to affect the enrichment activities that they take part in, the way they engage in fundraising events and the environment, particularly around accessibility. And on an organisational level, we have our governing body learner representative who reports learner voice to governors and SMT, and that's had an impact on the way in which, I'm just going to give you an example, the kitchens were remodelled and strategy in the college. So distance between college sites did make joined at working a barrier, particularly pre-COVID, Now, obviously, we are working much better on remote systems and able to join up learner engagement that way. But we recognised that we needed to ensure that all of our learner voices across all learner sites were being heard and shared. And that's where the Learner Cross-College Forum came into play. We needed to create a platform that brought together learner voice from all age sites. And work on this began in the 18-19 academic year. So it started as a collaborative approach. We set up some small task groups involving learners. So learner involvement was really about identifying the topics that learners wanted to discuss. We had our ECs, the teachers, who were really involved in the kind of the logistics of making it work, the timings of meetings, the frequency of meetings, the way in which learners would be able to take part and access information, and leaders who were involved in creating the strategies to kind of make this a sustainable practice. From that, we created our terms of reference and materials to support the introduction of a college-wide forum. So we had voting tools, we had posters that raised awareness of what the local forums and cross-college forums are and what they do, and who the learner representatives are in the centres. And we also created learner rep profiles because we needed to make sure that our learner reps had contact details, had information about who they are and how you can provide accessible information so that centres were able to work more collaboratively. So we started with a structure for our forum to operate, which began with our local centre forums where learners could meet ahead of the cross-college learner forum to discuss ideas, share their views on different topics. And we had learner reps voted in each centre who were able to gather those views and ideas and share them at the cross-college learner forum. That enabled our governing body learner representative to get an equal share of learner views and take that across to the governing body meetings where senior leaders and governors were present. And likewise, then that information could be, any feedback could be shared through the governing body learner representative back to the cross-college learner forum and back into the local forums. So we had a structure for that, but the process was very flexible and able to be adapted to suit the individual needs of our students. So as I mentioned, the learners identified the key areas of focus, and I've listed some of the areas that were really important to our students to be able to comment on and shape change. And we'll look at how we've worked on some of those areas throughout the presentation. One of the first things we needed to do was create shared meaning of what learner voice is to us. And for us, learner voice is about creating appropriate ways to listen to the perspectives, ideas of learners, respecting what everyone has to say and working together in partnership to bring about change. We then looked at the steps towards empowering learner voice, and we created this, well, we took this tool really from our learner involvement strategy. So it was really great to get people involved and working on the student forums and learner voice because it's embedded within the organisation's culture, their visions, their I statements. And we use this to kind of evaluate how well our learner voice action was. So we had right at the earlier stages being able to listen to our learners, being able to hear and understand their views, working through to being able to empower learners to set the agenda for change and manage decisions. So throughout the next few slides, we'll look at action against each of these points. And we'll start with the role of technology in listening to our learners' voice, which Helen will go through with you.
So the role of the technology has played a huge role in helping our learners develop their voice, find their voice and share it. Many of the people we support at Sense College are non-verbal or have non-traditional language. So from the moment they enter our college, it's important for us to carry out appropriate specialist assessments, whether that be vision and hearing assessments, sensory or technology assessments. And these help us understand what communication approaches will work well for each learner. Obviously, some of our learners come with very developed use of technology to help their communication, and some come with none. And the kind of technology that we use can range from eye gaze, very high-tech AACs, to more low-tech means of communication, such as recordable devices like Big Macs, and also, very importantly, no-tech solutions to communication approaches such as PECs and other picture communication systems. And once we've found an appropriate voice for our learners, it's really important to build the confidence in using that technology and make it part of the culture and part of our environment. So it becomes an everyday tool that we use to help communication. And celebrating successes really helps build confidence in using technology. And so does staff and learner training. There is no point in introducing technology if the staff and the learners aren't confident in how to use it. So once this has all been embedded and people are using their technology to communicate and find their voices, it's important for us to find meaningful opportunities for them to share their views. And we've done this in a range of ways. Learners have been keen to write technology reviews on what tech's working for them, or use technology to read their own care plans or their EHCPs to really find out if it reflects who they are. Another key point is to keep up to date with software updates so that our learners can keep up with social changes and have age-appropriate communication approaches. For example, one of our learners loves the new WhatsApp software that is built into Grid. He can now communicate in a much more age-appropriate way with family, with friends, with other college members. And COVID has changed the way that we worked. Things that were lower on our priority list, such as learning to use Microsoft Teams and Zoom, suddenly became one of our biggest priorities for learners to get to grips with using Teams and Zoom so that they could communicate both within their college site and across as part of the forum.
So as we mentioned, it's really about embedding learner voice in the student forum into the college culture. So for us, we needed to make sure that learners have access to opportunities to discuss forum topics. So we have our cross-college learner forum, but that's reinforced with those local learner forums and pre-meetings. And a lot of our forum topics are linked to wider curriculum learning. This really maximises learning opportunities and inspires authentic learner voice and discussion in real context. So that time allocated to the student forum and the related work and the pre-meetings was really important to ensure that all learners can take part. As Helen mentioned, having communication devices prepared and information that they wish to share in advance of the meeting really helped increase learner independence. We also use notice boards and other tools as an ongoing commitment that learners can contribute their voice as and when it arises outside of those forum meetings. And all of our learner reps have their own email addresses, so that they have sent college email addresses so that they can be contacted directly, so that they can take some responsibility and control over their interactions. They have their learner rep badges that they can proudly, and obviously posters up and around the college to ensure that it does remain a current topic of interest. So we've just got some examples of our student forum notice boards that keep everybody in the centre up to date with what's happening. Often topics are colour coded and given themes so we can see how they link back to what it is that we're discussing in the forum. And as you can see on this one, they've used the "you said, we did" approach and also left room for information to be added in as and when it arises. So it's a great way of collecting the evidence in as it happens, rather than trying to gather it at the end of the year. So we've put together a slide just to give you an example of an accessible survey, and this was linked to consulting and involving learners in decision making. So our learners in the cross-college learner forum will often determine the best way in which they will gather the voices of their peers back in the centre. That might be using visual surveys or ballot boxes, and learners might be supported by their staff members to contribute ideas based on responses that they've given to things that have happened. So this is one of the tools that our learners created. So our learners were involved in choosing the most appropriate headings, so the never, the sometimes, always and not sure, making sure that they were really clear in discussing kind of what those meant, to give a clear understanding of what they were asking their peers. And they also created the not sure icon. Originally we had a straight face that was just in yellow, but the learners felt that that didn't really represent the word not sure, so they added a question mark. And this is the tool that the learners used in their vote. So we looked at sense values here. We looked at the way in which sense values are embedded into the everyday experience of students. And students went away to get the ideas of their peers, collated those and came with their local centre vote, which was then cast through a cross-college vote. So we got an idea of what each centre contributed, but also came together as a cross-college forum, and were able to each centre vote individually and share their views. So now we're going to have a look at some of the things that our learners have worked on, any change that they have created, and looked at the ways in which the learner forum and learner voice has been used to empower our students. And environment is a hot topic at learner forums. Reps are keen advocates of environmental improvement in college and their local communities, from being eco-friendly to disability confident. And here we've got some pictures of one of our students who began with a Save Our Seas art project that was inspired by Sir David Attenborough. In his forum, he discussed ways in which he was going to take action and gave himself the role of eco-man, which supported some of his recycling action that he carried out in the centre. And he loved the feedback that he received from that and the interest, and he celebrated this through communicating his actions with Sir David Attenborough, and actually got a letter back from Sir David Attenborough himself. So that was a really lovely way of sort of expanding outside of the college and sharing what he does more widely. Another centre took some recycling action, where they listened to the Recycling Action Now podcast in their lesson, and they took away the message, "It's in our hands to make a difference, will you?" And learners discussed this message at their local forum and took action by acquiring recycling bins on site to sustain recycling commitments. Learners in another site were working in collaboration with Forest School to develop their outside area, and learners voted on having raised planters to make the garden more inclusive. And we had some "You Said We Did" action created there. And Helen, I'm going to pass the last one on to you to just explain how learners were involved in the environmental audit.
Yeah, so we had environmental audits that helped, so the learners helped devise what was necessary for our new accessible kitchens. And also I was at one centre doing an environmental audit, and a young man was walking with me doing the environmental audit, and I thought I'd done this audit very well. So I was looking at accessibility, suitability for people with visual impairments, hearing impairments and multisensory impairment. And I had my full list that the gentleman that was accompanying me went, "Well, I think you've missed this, and you've missed this." And it was such a great learning experience for me, that he, one, felt confident to tell me what I'd missed from my audit, and two, just generally the confidence to use his learner voice had really grown from when he first started, and he was very timid and wouldn't share his voice, to becoming quite vocal about what we need. And it really helped us develop and design more inclusive learning spaces.
Brilliant. So yeah, just expanding on that, we looked at ways in which our learners could branch out to using their voice to create change in the wider community. And we link this into some of curriculum learning. So one of our students, he would leave reviews, accessibility reviews, following a community visit. So he was able to discuss his experience. It built in self-awareness, literacy skills and problem-solving skills. Learners participate in external forums. So our learners in one of our sites has been participating in the Natspec Student Parliament. Learners engage with Voiceability Speak Out councils. So they look at things in their local community, particularly around transport and accessibility, and use their voice to identify and create change that way. And students have also took part in digital takeover days during lockdown when they weren't able to get out and carry out some of their work experience or volunteering. And learners also created some positive change at a local supermarket where the disabled trolley signage wasn't accessible to the people who needed to access those trolleys. And they shared this information with the supermarket, who then also created some use said we did action by moving and redesigning their signage. And we've just put another example on where learners recognised that the road into college wasn't safe. They contacted the local council to get some road gritting in place. So it was really great for our learners to identify any issues that they have, identify the change that they would like, and then get that feedback that you said we did feedback. And that's worked really well to enhance self-esteem and empowering learners to use their voice in positive ways.
So Learner Voice has really helped us set our technology strategy. Their empowerment to have Learner Voice has had a big impact on how we do things. For example, the learners were consulted and they informed the setup of a new technology library. So surveys were sent out to them and they said, we'd like to have more accessibility equipment, we'd like to have more technology for people with visual impairments. So that helped us build our technology library. And that's become a positive cycle because they've had a chance to use that technology that they requested. And that has given them greater learner voice and greater independence. As I said previously, the learners have written newsletter articles and have done product reviews for our newsletters. And previous members of our Sense College have gone on to set up their own YouTube channels and share their voice on what's good and what's not in terms of technology. One of the greatest things that has come out of our learners' enjoyment and wants to share their voice is presenting at the Natspec Tech Ability Conference. The learners really, really wanted to present and did an absolutely fantastic job. They had over 50 delegates attend their presentation where they shared the importance of technology and how it's helped them develop their communication, their social interaction, their learning. The students were confident enough to be able to answer questions in real time. You can see some of the students in that picture there during the conference. Two of them, when they came to us, didn't have a firm communication system that worked for them, but working together and seeing the confidence of their peers has helped them develop their communication approach. And it really was a brilliant high point. The learners loved it.
So in addition to obviously learners progressing on to participate in the Natspec Tech Ability Conference, our learners were inspired by winning the Learner Voice Award to create our own Sense College Awards last academic year. So we held these remotely and the event brought all learners and staff from across the college together. So it kind of supports the vision of that cross-college working and elevated that and brought everybody together in a really relaxed sense to kind of show that that they can contribute without having to do all of this extra pre-work. So it's really got everybody working together in a new way. And our learners were able to participate by revealing our winners live during the remote ceremony using their accessible communication methods. Our learner reps have role modelled to their peers ways in which they can contribute and help them realise that they can take part too. So we're hoping that this year we can recruit even more learner representatives to take part in the Cross College Learner Forum. I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes of that. So we're just about to come to the close of our presentation, and we wanted to say that our Sense College Cross College Learner Forum application for the Natspec Award was put together to recognise the dedication and creativity of our learners and staff in addressing complex communication challenges and the progress to empowering learner voice and achieving collaborative success on the Learner Forum. Since winning the award, staff and learners have took on new challenges to extend their great work, and plans to build on this continue. We would like to thank Natspec for offering us this opportunity to showcase our work. And when you're ready, Helen, we'll close the presentation with a short video followed by some question and answers.
I just want to give me a moment. I had a bit of a technical issue beforehand, so I just need to locate the video.
Might have it actually up, Helen. Is that sharing with you?
Yeah, it just needs to be rewound a bit. Yeah. You might need to share your computer sound.
Okay, I'm going to have to unshare. Have you got it? Is the sound on? My apologies for the technical. There we go.
Sound was on just then, Shari.
Oh, it's not going.
That's good. I can hear it now.
Thank you.
What I like about them is you get to do the meetings and meet other members of the forum who go to different sense colleges.
Governor rep because I'm interested in other people's views and their opinions on how we can make the college a better place to be.
They make me feel happy, safe and confident.
thank you very much for that presentation, Shari and Helen. Really, really interesting. If anyone's got any questions, they can type them in the Q&A panel. But I had a couple myself, so I hope you don't mind me asking you. I was really interested to hear about your system around having the student reps for the governing body. Can you tell us a bit more? How are they chosen, or do they volunteer, or how does that work exactly?
So our learner representatives are nominated in by their peers in their local centre. So then we tend to have a number of representatives who can then apply to be the governing body learner representative. And they can apply in any way that suits them. It might be through an audio presentation, it might be through a PowerPoint, but they will tell the other reps and peers in college why they would like to take on the role of governing body representative, the skills and experiences they already have that would make them a good representative. So in the past, learners have participated in some kind of voiceability or some form of platform where they've had to share their views before. Usually they'll have a passion for being able to create change and listening to their peers. So they'll share with their peers why they're applying and why they feel they would make a good governing body learner representative. And then from those, we usually have a vote or some form of close. It's usually done not within the college, we do it separately, and then announce who received the most votes, and that person would then have their governing body position. And it's usually for an academic year, so then we can rotate it round.
And is it one rep from each college site, or is it a couple?
When we started out, it was one learner rep, but actually we then had a student who applied to be the governing body learner rep in a centre, and then had a learner representative, because it can require a little bit of work. So we found that it worked better if there was more than one learner willing. And what that then allowed is somebody to kind of backfill that role, because when that learner rep then leaves the centre, if you've had a second learner rep in, getting a bit of experience about what the sessions are about and how they work, then it actually helps with that continuity for the following year.
Yeah, makes it much more sustainable. That makes a lot of sense. Yes, yeah. Thank you. And I was also interested about the crucial preparation that happens before the meeting. You said that there was a pre-meeting before the cross-college forum. How far in advance does that happen? And I suppose these are two questions. Who is it that sets the agenda, and how is the agenda set for the cross-college forum?
Okay, so previously, I would set the agenda. After a meeting that I had with the students recently, they did request that they would have more autonomy over that. And actually, our learners are going to potentially take on the responsibility of the cross-college, so they would actually have more control over presenting to their peers, because we do have lots of role models now within the learner rep team who can role model and set the agenda and carry out the presentation. When it comes to preparing, it does take a bit of time, and it does need to be done in advance. So at the end of our last cross-college meeting last academic year, our learners voted on the topic in which they would focus on for this academic year. So already last academic year, we were thinking ahead. So then that allows students to start discussing in their sessions, their PFD sessions. So this year's focus will be on wellbeing, because there was lots of focus on that last academic year. So already our students will be preparing for that. Information will be being shared. Our students will then create their own, and our learners can do it in any way that suits them. They might create a bit of a mind map, they might create a presentation that pulls together their ideas on what wellbeing is, what wellbeing support they've received, and what wellbeing support they might like to see being introduced. So there is quite a bit of prep work, and it really helps if information is shared ahead of the meeting as well, so that whilst we try to create a total communication approach, the supporting staff can then prepare any communication devices or textbooks that they require ahead of the meeting, so that students can take part and have a bit of an idea of what's going to be shared ahead of attending.
Thank you. That's really interesting. And then Helen, I was really interested to hear about the work you do with technology. In terms of, the situation we were all thrown into last year with lockdown, were there any significant things that new things that you learned, even though I know you're an expert already in technology, but in terms of what we were driven to change the ways in which we communicate, were there any ways that you change your practice significantly?
Definitely. As I mentioned in the presentation, things like Microsoft Teams and Zoom were before pretty much staff-led, whereas COVID and lockdown made us think these are skills that are really essential for our students. So one centre in particular had Zoom sessions where they would have everybody, or team sessions where they would have everybody in the centre in different rooms on Zoom, practicing how to use the chat function, how to mute, how to use the emoticons and the hand raising, which was really valuable. So I think the biggest thing that came out of it was that learning to use social video streaming.
Okay, thanks. That's really interesting. Yeah, we all had to learn those sort of things, didn't we? very quickly. And just my final question really was about how you embed this in the curriculum. You mentioned that in passing, Shari, right at the beginning, because obviously if this isn't a key part of the whole curriculum, then you're going to have so much more preparation work to do when the forums come up. So how do you embed it in the curriculum?
Well, a lot of the communication and interaction that it takes place links over to sessions, literacy work, and our learners who are on accredited programs tend to have a connection there between what they have to submit for their portfolio. So they actually use a lot of this real life action as their evidence. So it overlaps, and that then allows them to take some of the learning into their sessions so that we can allocate some dedicated time to prepare and create information that they're going to then present. So often it's the personal and social development and the English units that really do overlap with the learner forum.
Thanks very much. I didn't know whether you had anything else to add, Helen, before I stop the recording and close the webinar.
No, can't think of anything else.
Okay, so I just want to thank you both very much for coming along and presenting today about this really interesting work that's going on. I'm going to stop the recording now, and just to remind people that they can watch a recording of this whole webinar on the Natspec YouTube channel. Thank you.